Can I take a minute to use this as a sharing space?
For sure, please do.
I just submitted first LOI Friday.
Congrats.
Yeah, remodeling company down in San Jose. So they've already come back and be like, I'm like, oh, it's based on the number, dude. So and then so I explained more of like my thinking. So we'll see what they say.
Awesome, congrats.
Thank you.
What's the adjusted EBITDA of the company?
It's it's such a young company that like it kind of fluctuates. So they had a really good year, and he's predicting 1 million, and I'm like, but you're not there yet. So like they came close, I think, one of the years, but it's been about between 6 and 8. So
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. So this is a bit of a free-form session. Watch the chat, because I'm going to put a bunch of links in the chat. And there's probably a bunch of stuff you'll want to look at afterwards. I will spend probably about 30 to 40 minutes going over just how I use AI and in my companies, and how I suggest some people can use AI in their search and diligence. And then we'll kind of open it up to about 20 to 30 minutes Q&A. Yeah, so let's get started. So first, I've been spending about half my day, usually typically between about 4:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. every day for the last over a year, just kind of learning AI and tinkering with it, because I realized quite early that it would be by far the lowest hanging fruit in terms of being able to apply it in companies. Most of that is around applying it within the actual marketing and operations of the company. I've also, as I started doing this and kind of training people, I kind of did a pop-up business that I started about 4 months ago, training other people on sort of the technique that I came up with. And so we've trained like 100 CEOs of the last 4 months. This is the technique I'm putting in the chat here. Get the link. It's called the master prompt method. It kind of shows how to give AI context. Specifically, it's for context on your business, because you'll find that AI is about 10x more effective with proper context. So I'd highly recommend, if you haven't seen that, watch that video later. In terms of what LLMs I use, I typically use ChatGPT and Claude. I use Claude more. I like Claude mainly because of its artifacts usage. How many people here, like, just put your thumbs up, how many people here have actually used Claude? I'm curious. Cool, bunch of people, good. Basically, Claude has, just like ChatGPT, Claude has projects, but Claude also has like strong artifacts. And you can ask Claude to basically go and create, for example, you can ask Claude to create a go-to-market for an idea, and it'll go and create like 9 different artifacts, each with, each piece of it. Or you can ask Claude to create SOPs for a process, and it'll go out and just create the SOPs. One of the things I show in that video is like a couple different examples of, if you give your sort of AI context, how you can literally just like create all the process for your business in like one prompt. It has like system preferences. I can share my screen probably. Okay, so if you go to Claude here, so Claude has projects, and you see I have projects for a bunch of different, so this is for that company that trains CEOs, this is for Acquira and Empower. If you go down here, there are settings, and you can go to your system preferences, and you can put in a bunch of preferences that'll apply to every single prompt you make. So I can either copy and paste this in for you guys, which is going to be really big, or it might be easier. I'm just going to give the file to Andy, and if anyone wants this, just reach out to Andy, and Andy can email it to you. But basically, this has a bunch of style preferences as well as a bunch of kind of little protocols that I use that can be helpful. So like I said, these system preferences apply to every chat you ever make, whereas projects themselves, let's say this project, which is one of my companies, have files that then apply to any single chat that you start within the project. Okay, why does that matter for the search? Well, one thing you can do is within your system preferences, you can basically put in your investment thesis, right? So you can say, who you are, what you're looking for, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how AI can potentially help you, how much money you want to spend on a business, what kind of businesses you're looking for. And then you can create each project for each business that you're actually doing diligence on. One thing that we've done internally is we have a little prompt right here. And so I can, again, if you want this, Andy can just provide it, but the project details in this prompt kind of look like, look like this. And so we'll send you this prompt. And we use this mainly in our A+ operations, but basically you can just say sim review and it'll go and like create an artifact like this and give you kind of, no matter what your PDF that you upload, gives it to you in the same format, and it's very strong. So again, if you want these things, there's probably going to be 3 or 4 different things. Just ask Andy. Andy will share. Before I move forward, so basically, any questions about like diligence and using AI for diligence? Go for it, Nick.
Hey, can you just walk us through kind of what you're actually using, what that process looks like, and what you mean by using AI for diligence, like which stages, which pieces it's specifically responsible for helping you with?
Yeah, so typically it's for sim review. So we save a ton of time on the actual sim review, specifically with that prompt. You can also, so Claude is actually now decent at actually making Google Sheets. You can feed it certain sheets like the operating model, for example, and have it make operating models for you. That would typically be in like phase 2 diligence. You can use it for generating offers and offer ideas and use it as a thought partner, which is very useful. You can use it, and I use it to prepare for calls with brokers and with sellers based on the sim. What questions to ask, how you should approach the conversation, etc. You can use it to do much of the intrinsic value calculator second pass work for you. If you were to keep all of the data room within a project and continually add to it, you could also use it almost like a project manager for getting through the last mile, which is a very interesting use case, which is kind of what we do with sort of just having all of our process in AI supported by Rich or whomever's working with the AE. Those are some ideas.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on sort of the diligence side before I move into some search stuff?
All right, check. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great, I'm back. Yeah, the question I had is that, I have a business background. I've been using Google's deep research to help me evaluate different beachheads and find adjacent markets and overlapping. I can tell when it's missed the mark or when it's made up something that's not representative of, or it's taking it it's taking US market and then kind of dividing it downwards to back in, but it
Mhm.
doesn't say, hey, I couldn't find information in Seattle for low voltage, so I did X. What kind of safeguards do you have for, I'm not even talking about hallucinating, but just going, hey, show your homework or to tell me when you kind of guesstimated here.
Yeah, so one very useful prompt that you can also put in your system prompt is to ask the AI to rate its confidence.
Yeah.
And then you'll find the areas in which it's not highly confident, and that removes, I'd say, the majority of like that hallucination or shortcut taking that it can take. The other thing I'd say is like use deep research on multiple platforms. So use it in Perplexity, using a ChatGPT, use it in Gemini, use it in Claude, right? And even send each other's results to each other's platforms. So just, hey, Claude gave me this. And I find that can be very helpful. And then always just have it explain the math, because often it just gets the math wrong. And so you do need to watch it, especially if you're doing like, let's say like TAM analysis or something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. So it is really taking your hypothesis and saying, okay, hey, it's outlining in these ways, but now I need to go validate each one of these and then still drill in. It's just helping you do it faster.
Yep.
But cool. All right, I have it telling me the confidence, but not by section. So this is something, yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
And it's kind of like, it's almost like if you're vibe coding, it's better to kind of create a PRD and then go after things section by section. I would say the same applies here, where you would say like, strategically, how should I do this? That's the question, right? And then once you figure out strategically how to do it, all right, how do I figure this piece of it out? And if you do that, you'll tend to get much better results.
Right, that makes sense. Cool, thanks, Ed.
No problem. And I'm happy to
question, Hayden.
go for it, Ben.
Oh, sorry. I think action dropped for a second there. Didn't mean to. What subscription level do you have with each LLM platforms? You ever find that you run out of tokens? Okay.
So I have Claude Team. I'll probably upgrade to Claude Max in a separate account, just when the full sort of computer usage stuff comes out and the browser toolbar. Right now it's kind of being tested by like 1,000 users, but that's a game changer. I use ChatGPT Pro. Claude's biggest downfall is the size of its token window. And so I don't typically run out of like a number of requests, but I'll often run out of basically tokens within an individual chat in Claude. And so I always just make sure to have my artifacts kind of ready to then populate into ChatGPT, which has 5x the token window. And those are like the two main ones I use. And then I have like a custom coded little tool that I use and I use API credits with.
Okay. That makes sense. Thanks.
Yep. Again, if anyone has any questions on any of the things I mentioned on the diligence and we want to dig into it, we can. Again, we'll leave some time at the end. In terms of the business search side, there are tools that allow you to, this has always existed. There are tools that allow you to scrape and enrich data. And then there are tools that allow you to send emails and texts in bulk. And there are tools that allow you to personalize videos in bulk. And so one of the things that we've spent a lot of effort on over the last several months is putting all of that together. So I can talk a little bit about that workflow. It would be, for a use case here, it's great for off market and basically generating conversations. It's great for brokers and generating conversations with brokers. And then it's also great for really great for the actual businesses that you buy. So I'm going to explain the process first, and then I'll talk about how it actually applies to each of those three things. So basically, you are scraping a list, right? There's all sorts of different ways to scrape lists, right? Often when people like scrape Google Maps, right? There's Appify, A-P-I-F-Y, is a common scraper. If you want to put everything in one place, I would highly recommend a tool called Clay.com. So anyone who's kind of probably in sales prospecting has probably used it before. Clay basically allows you to scrape a list, create a list, and then enrich that list in all sorts of different ways with like cascading waterfalls. And so what you want to do is basically put the list into Clay, and then there are various ways that you want to be able to get their email address and phone number. And just to save you guys some time, if you do this on your own, the first thing you want to do is that Clay has its own enrichment on getting the LinkedIn URL. So getting the owner's name, and then through AI, and getting the LinkedIn URL through AI. You can put in your own API credits to just so it costs you fractions of a penny. And then from there, you can use Wizza to get basically through LinkedIn their phone number and email. And then there's a bunch of other different ways to get their phone number and email. From there, you can then text, call, email. With text, there are a bunch of tools now that do AI personalized texts en masse. I would be careful with spamming people with that, but for B2B, it's typically fairly safe. With email, again, if you're just sending from your personal email, just be mindful of how many emails you send so you don't get spammed or spam blocked. Alternatively, you can use platforms like Smart Leads or Instantly to rotate mailboxes and send lots of emails. So we send our goal is to send 100,000 emails a month per customer, per A+ client. And that's typically across about 20,000 leads a month. All of that is done very cheaply. There's another tool called SendPotion, and there are various other options that basically create, I don't know, you may have seen this just in your personal inboxes, where you get an unsolicited email and it has a link to a Loom video of the person like going over your website and talking to you. That is AI generated, but because it's a Loom video with your face in the bottom right and it has your website scrolling around and talking to you, it really looks like someone put in the effort to record a 3 or 4 minute video. So you get much better engagement and reply rates. Something we're playing with a lot. Okay, so obviously, if you were to do this, you could scrape Google Maps for HVAC, plumbing, electrical, whatever, roofing businesses in your area. You could create that list, you could enrich it, you could contact them. I would recommend email to start, and probably texting. Like texting has really strong engagement, whereas email gets maybe a 1% reply rate to actual businesses, off-market businesses. Texting gets probably more like 5x that, just because most people don't get that many random texts. Both of which are way more effective use of your time because it's almost automated than calling. We've experimented with some AI SDRs. They're not there yet. Where this is really interesting is in when you have a business and you own those leads, right? So either you have a customer list or you have a lead list. So like Acquira has maybe like 25, 30,000 emails. And we have texts for all of those. And so we have a campaign that basically texts people every 60 days, personalized, right? And then we have it all automated to then go schedule calls for us. We implemented this about a year ago in November, and it entirely replaced all of our paid ad spend. And then we turned paid ad spend back on, and that was great. So we've also implemented in a bunch of home service companies. And what that allows you to do is basically re-engage your customers and your leads, typically at about a 3% call rate. Meaning if someone has a list of 10,000 customers, they can often get 3% of those customers get an appointment or get on a phone call in a given month, which is huge, right? That replaces a massive amount of ad spend, to the point where I personally consider it now as part of my intrinsic value. Like if I look at business A and it has a lead list of 10,000, a customer list of 7,000, and business B has none, I can, with some confidence, I can assume like a pretty large lift through this on business A. I don't know how long that'll last. I'd probably, discount 80% of that lift, but it's still something. Any questions on that? So on basically on the prospecting side, whether it is to your own customers or to strangers.
What tools are you using to automatically schedule the conversations from the text?
So on the tech side, we're using, we have an integrator who uses the WooSender platform. And, but we're not going through WooSender itself. We've been looking at basically, it's effectively like, it's a Twilio integration, right?
Is it a custom written app?
It basically uses WooSender, and these guys just know how to use WooSender well. But my understanding is that WooSender on its own is not very good. So these are kind of like a custom integrator of WooSender. On the email side, we've used RevReply.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so one thing, are there any tools or places you're pointing your scrapers for something like, I'm looking at non-traditional category like life safety, fire alarms, low voltage installer. It's not even really would be a category on Yelp. Is there a place that you're pointing the scraper at that is good at pulling out that intent, or sites that do have that category? Better Business Bureau, actually, I just found recently had that, but I can't see anything else.
Have you tried it on Google Maps?
Yeah, it mixes up data communication centers, data centers, rather than where we run the cables, so we're the installers.
I mean, one thing you could do is take a source like Google Maps, but then enrich it in Clay with AI to remove everything that.
Just post-process it.
Yeah, Clay has this really nice feature which allows you to test an AI prompt on the first 10 rows of your sheet, and so you can basically play with it a whole bunch without using a bunch of credits, and then clean up and enrich your list really well.
Okay, I like this.
If you want to use email, there's a tool from back in ages ago called Scrapebox, that it is an incredible sort of Google scraper, though it only works on PC and I don't think it's been updated in a while. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about post-close and how AI is kind of changing operations. So first things first, buying home service businesses is going to get more competitive, because I mean, everything is being replaced by AI except for a lot of these sort of essential services in person. The other thing I'd say is a lot of the use of or value of, say, joining something like a franchise in terms of systems is basically replaced with AI. At this point, building strong systems and operations is being entirely democratized, to the point of you can build extremely strong systems, customized. Again, watch that video. And or you can just basically sign up for various AI-based workflows that exist out there. One thing that most of the home service companies are using is Podium. So I'd suggest you look into that. So Podium used to be just an online review management software, and then they kind of turned into a like do everything for home service businesses. And so they do a bunch of like AI chat, they do a bunch of AI like CSRs, and most of our companies are using it now. The re-engagement, like I said, is a huge one, and just everybody should be doing that constantly. Anything that involves, let's say, RFPs and creating estimates, I would say AI can do like 70% of the lift there now. Obviously, there's a lot of take-off stuff that you would probably still want to do, or you'd want to integrate AI into existing sort of take-off software. But that's super useful. Updating WIP and WIP management, you can use AI for that. Yeah, from an operations perspective, it's hugely valuable. Any questions on the? I mean, I know you guys don't have businesses yet, but any questions on that side?
What about AI dispatch? Have you seen something that like takes in addresses and creates an optimized drive route, notifies customers, like that whole dispatch functionality?
Yeah, none of the big tools have really introduced it well yet. Podium's going that route, and I've seen basically like these new custom AI ERPs, but I've never used them. I suspect it'll all be there though, and on all of the tools within 12 months.
What about the RFPs that you just mentioned? What tools are good at responding to RFPs?
Oh, I'm just talking about like honestly just LLMs, like just using Claude straight up with a strong master prompt, so understanding the context of the organization. So what we do in that program where we teach CEOs is basically we take people through like the customer life cycle, right? So market to lead, lead to sale, sale delivery, delivery to success, success to market, success to sale. And we kind of share the same language with the LLM and have it walk through best practices as well as sort of assess your own business. And then this all gets turned into documents that go towards your project that creates this master prompt. And so eventually, you know, any chat you have with the AI knows absolutely everything about your business. And so you can have, you know, a single sentence query is like, if I had to talk to you about that, it would probably take me 10 minutes to give you enough context to get a good answer. You have a service business, right, Eric?
Yeah, I do. I have a cleaning company. We use Podium. I'm not using the. Well, I've actually just left my full-time job and I'm just joining my cleaning company full-time now. So I'm going to do Podium, automate a bunch of responses, reduce our lead times, just improve as much as I can. Really make AI the first line of defense for inbound leads, and use my service advisors and my humans to handle escalation.
Awesome. Do you have any questions?
Well, I haven't seen any dispatch functionality in Podium. It doesn't have any concept of like calendar, like your teams going out, how many groups you have, and that kind of thing. You know, people are using Service Titan and other software for doing that. Unfortunately, Service Titan has no ability to accept inbound email, so you still need something like Podium or something like that. So it seems like Podium and Service Titan are kind of the two primary best-of-breed tools for handling both managing the operations internally and all of the inbound leads, putting into the thing that. So I just need to spend a little more time. one thing I'm seeing is many of these pieces of software are getting the payment processing business, right? And so you may pay a few $100s a month for the software, but now you're using their payment processing and paying another $500 to $1,000 a month there, and they're actually creating their own proprietary payment processing system. So now when you choose one of these pieces of software, maybe for the AI functionality, you're also committing to use payment processing software, which is a little frustrating. Not a question, just an observation, but it's driving people, I think, to tools like Podium and service type that allow flexible payment processing, because many of the others don't allow that. I see service type and Podium getting a lot of business.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'll if I hear about any good AI dispatch, I'll let you know.
Cool. That'd be super helpful. Yeah, we use a tool called Route for Me, which it's not really AI, but it's kind of the most advanced routing tool that I've found. It has a nice API, but it doesn't integrate with other tools. But we have a Christmas light installation business where we have hundreds of routes that we have to plan in a very short period of time, and doing that manually makes no sense. So I have used Route for Me to optimize just routing of like 10 trucks per day for 90 days. But something that was a little more dynamic that could take inputs as addresses and output and optimize schedule on a daily or hourly basis.
Yep. I mean, hypothetically, it should replace dispatching entirely. Right?
I think so.
All right. Any questions about anything related to AI? Again, either sourcing, diligence, pre-LOI, post-LOI, or operations. Go ahead, Todd.
All right. So you were talking earlier about you're building out your entire prompt that knows everything about your business. Are you doing that as a RAG, or is that? I mean, how are you storing that? Because that can get really big, and all of a sudden you've eaten up all your prompt.
So we have tried like vector databases and RAG. With what we're teaching, it's not really necessary. I'd say, like, if I share my screen here. Like this one right here is using 7% of the token window to get everything we need across about 15 files. Everything's in Markdown. So it's really just system injecting all the data into the prompt. It's not using RAG.
Okay. But what about for like SOPs and things like that, where eventually you're going to build up the information about your business, and then you're going to ask, say, well, I need an SOP to cover this area, right? Are you still just injecting all these different documents that cover those different areas of your business?
So typically what we would do is we kind of use that context to create many of these SOPs. So here's an example of like a single prompt creating a whole bunch of SOPs for Acquira here, including like the visual diagram for it. So I have like a own kind of vibe coded our own tool here that allows us to kind of store all this and then have AI chat reference pieces of this, which is kind of like, it's kind of like a way of doing RAG. It's just semantic searching based on the database as opposed to actual vector database. But what we're teaching people is basically create all the process, store it in Google Drive, and then you can reference it, not put it in your actual project.
And then question around this, like the CIM evaluation. I guess I'm curious because like generally a CIM, like I just looked at one this morning, was very high level. Financials were pretty like just sparse, right? I mean, it's only going to give you enough to show how they came about the SDEs for those different years. So I'm curious, what value am I going to get out of asking AI questions to ask it questions about the CIM?
So I think there's two ways to look at this. So one is like a screening pass. So you have the screening pass, like what I just showed was kind of a screening pass to say, should I even look at this, right? And then the other is when you do get very complex sims, it is very useful to just run it through and then ask the AI questions about the sim.
Is it viable or a good thing to ask, like compare this to maybe other similar industries, or would it even have that knowledge?
Yeah, no, it's actually great at benchmarking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things I use it for most, especially if I'm looking at a business or an industry I don't know a ton about. Yeah, you can benchmark all sorts of KPIs.
Okay.
The number one thing I think is just use AI. You know, do whatever you can to like use it all day and try it for everything, because you'll find all sorts of use cases. Any other questions?
Do we have time that you could run us through like an example and what you were talking about earlier? Like maybe even looking at a CIM or something, show how you go about doing it?
Sure. I mean, I can also just provide you guys with that prompt and then you can use it.
Okay.
So that's maybe not the best use of time. I can show you. Go ahead.
You said you'll also highlight which tools are like I misread that. Are there any tools actually? It'd be great to hear which tools you found were not impactful, or the way AI was like, it's not really the thing for it.
What was not impactful? I find that most agentic approaches today and like workflow approaches today are very overblown. And so I think the approach still is to try to use LLMs for as much as possible. And so I wouldn't go the route of like, I'm going to make this N8N workflow to, you know, automate everything. That's just not really real right now. I think that's kind of the main thing. Is like that's where all the hype is, but it's still quite early.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like that was probably a rabbit hole you went down, the agentic stuff, and then backed out of.
Yeah, yeah, and it all comes down to like you need to know your processes really well, which is why I kind of came to, all right, well, let's use AI to, you know, actually create our processes. That then gets you ready to go the agentic route. But then I even found once you know your processes well and you have a way to teach others, and then you have a shared language with AI, you can just use AI to improve your processes. And like my favorite question is when I'm looking at it, I'll talk about any process, and I'll just be like, how can I use LLMs without coding to make this, you know, more efficient, faster, save money? And it'll give me all sorts of great reasons. I'm like, all right, put that in the process and we'll test it out.
Awesome.
Hayden, could you tell us a little bit more about like you said you spend like 4 hours a day on kind of learning. Like what's your learning process? Like what's your approach to organize, what are your sources? What have you found the best way to learn and kind of develop these prompts in your knowledge base?
Usually it'll be through a combination of watching something on YouTube and then testing it out with AI. So usually I'll watch something on YouTube. I have like my own learning prompt on sort of coming like, what did I learn? How can I apply it? And then I'll go with an LLM and try to actively like apply this to a business. And then that usually takes me down an interesting rabbit hole. And I'd say, you know, probably 3/4 of the things I look at don't end up anywhere, but 1/4 does. And, you know, that could then turn into a massive windfall for many companies. So it's worth it, and it's fun. Like I've got like it's AI is like the perfect tool for someone with ADHD, because I can just like I can ask it something and then it like does this, it's working on it for 2 minutes, and I got another thing going and I'll ask it and it's working for 2 minutes. I can just go like laterally between everything. Yeah, it's wonderful.
For sure.
How, so I'm curious, like for a business and you're looking at, can you ask, how could I grow this business? Is that a question that's going to be viable to ask?
It is. I prefer to, so when I mentioned, again, if you ask for that prompt from Andy that has sort of that common language, there's like an invisible structure to business that I teach the LLM so that we have the shared language. So instead of saying, how can I grow this business? I'll typically look at like one segment to say market to lead, right? And it understands what market to lead means. And I could say like, what are some ways I could, improve the market to lead process? What are some ways I could improve the lead to sale process, the sale to delivery process, the delivery to success process? Every business has all of these processes, right? That's the customer life cycle. And so you get much, much better answers when you have that specificity. And then also when the AI has the context of what your process is, right? So let me see if I can show an example. Yeah. So I just went to the Acquira project and I said, how can I improve our market to lead process? And one of the system prompts that I have is to always ask me questions for clarity and to always answer its own questions based on what it knows about my company. And so it's basically saying we need more working capital. So it's asking these questions. It knows enough about us to answer, right? What's your timeline investment capacity? It knows everything about where this is. And so I can basically say, medium term diversification, volume problem. But if I ask this question without giving it context, it would just give me a generic answer about, YouTube or something. It's telling me I don't have a volume problem, which is probably true. But yeah, basically you ask a market to lead question. You can also ask I could ask a fulfillment question. Right, so I could say, what are 3 ways I can improve the delivery to success process for Accelerator?
It will never tell you you've done everything possible.
It will never tell me that. No. Always growth. Interesting. So it's asking me how I define success first. But as you can see, it already knows about like what we offer, what the accelerator is. but it doesn't have data yet on these actual metrics, which we have in a separate source. So let's just say I want more people to get to LOI. So these are the assumptions it's making about its own questions. So it's saying most students consume content but don't execute. They're learning but not doing. The workshops are your best conversion mechanism because they create accountability and momentum. Students who don't attend workshops probably plateau after a few months of passive learning. Your current coaching model is passive. Students have to show up and ask questions rather than being practically pushed. Like I'd say actually all of those assumptions are correct. And typically, we'll see if we have time to get to this, but typically it'll come up with some decent ideas, right? And then you'll basically ask it to create like go-to-market artifacts on them. So I'll show you that in a second. Okay, it's saying use a forcing function with milestone gates. It's telling me what the cons are. Mandatory one-on-one accountability coaching. Cohort-based action sprints. It's recommendations of a hybrid of them. So normally I'd go back and forth for longer, but let's say I say create a go-to-market, multiple artifacts. So it even knows who our people are. It knows who has to do these things. So actually, this is probably a good example of how I would learn and use AI, right? Maybe I watch a YouTube video about a specific, I learned about like the Andromeda updates and Meta, and so I went back and forth asking AI about it and what changes need to be made, and then I go and eventually like create all of these artifacts in this same kind of format.
Have you found that like where you're using AI more in your businesses, that you're like the profile of the person you're looking to hire has changed, either upskilled or even maybe downskilled? Like I guess you're looking for somebody more strategic that can use the AI better, or somebody who can just kind of?
It's super interesting because it's both. So I'm looking now, and it has 100% changed. And the idea of a junior North American in any sort of knowledge work is kind of disappeared. I don't want that, because someone offshore with AI is very strong and can frankly do a lot of the copying and pasting required when AI is now kind of like the manager, right? And so that's a useful, like a very useful position, and like that sort of democratization of IQ and execution makes that profile better. But actual domain expertise is super, super important, right? So I have enough domain expertise to know in many spaces, is AI hallucinating or not? Is this bullshit, right? And so I'd say if you can hire someone who's top 10%, I'd say AI is like top 30% on anything. But if you can hire someone who's like top 10%, they'll create like really meaningful solutions for you. And so like I think the HubSpot CEO has this saying like U to the power of AI. I really believe that. And if you follow the way developers are going, so our developer, I've worked with him for almost 15 years now. We actually used to have a company in Mexico City, and we did like Solidity development. We had 15 programmers, and he managed them all. and we worked on sort of two main projects back then. And he's been working on a project with me by himself. And so literally I've been product managing only him. And he has accomplished more in the last 4 months than a team of 15 did in a year.
Yeah.
And he's like probably a top 5% programmer. At the same time, I've gotten rid of all our junior programmers. It's just a waste of time. Like, it's just faster for him to just do it than to him even to explain it. And I think it's going to go that route with everything that's knowledge work, right? Programming is just the first, because that's, currently the most leverage. That's where they put their money.
So when you go into a home services business, are you looking to like restructure your team based on that domain knowledge, try to retain those and kind of leverage that, and then the more routine tasks just kind of let them go?
For home services businesses, there are certain things. So if you wanted to create like a knowledge base on how to solve certain problems, that can be quite useful. I would say like this home service business, like if you look at like where knowledge work exists, it kind of exists in like creating and updating price books, in customer acquisition, in customer service, right? Like and in sort of the hire to retire process, and like any shared service, right? Finance, HR. It's like those are the areas where AI is really useful. Less so on like really enabling techs. I would say, I don't have data to back this up, but I would say that AI can also enable like very junior techs, because you can actually take photos of things and ask questions of it. And so it kind of acts as training. And I imagine if you were to then create a similar kind of master prompt around, electrical problems with different brands of air conditioners, you could probably create something of real use. But I think, again, if you do that, the real value is in creating an HVAC training company, not in owning an HVAC company.
Right.
Why was it, it was showing on your right-hand pane of that window, it was generating React code. What was it? Why was it doing that?
Probably one of the artifacts is an actual little app it made.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's still working on it.
So Hayden, we talked about that deep research, but I'm looking what you've got here is pretty good. I recognize some of these email prompts. When do you jump out of this and go into more of the deep research side, or do you?
I typically don't need to. I'll use deep research more on when I want to do actual market research, or when I want to, like, say, collect data from a ton of different sources. So like deep research is super useful for like understanding comp in a certain place. So for example, let's say I'm doing diligence and I want to understand if the techs are being underpaid in a business, but I don't know anything about fair market wages for junior techs in wherever, Savannah, right? You can use deep research for that and say, hey, I want you to get a minimum of like 30 different offers in this region in the last 9 months or 12 months.
That makes sense.
Okay, so these are the artifacts it created. Playbook. This is the React artifact. It's like a sprint-based.
It's pretty hot.
Yeah. Imagine how long this would have taken pre-AI.
It's pretty impressive. You have a pretty good prompt then to get it to do all this.
But see, I mean, the thing is, my prompt was literally this, right?
But don't you have some background information?
Yeah, it's just the master prompt behind it, right, which has all this info. But I mean, this is even not a big master prompt, right? So if you look at some of the stuff behind it, it's like UVP, brand, voice, business identity, right, to understand who we are. Core values, stuff on our acquisition channels, stuff on our people. Our finances. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really helpful. Thanks, Hayden.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Looking forward to those the system prompts. I have been using ChatGPT more than Claude. I've been looking for a reason to bounce over, so this is inspiring.
Yeah, I use them both. So ChatGPT is just not quite as good on the artifact side. I think ChatGPT is going to win just because it's solved memory the best, and so obviously this whole context thing is only useful for as long as LLMs don't actually have really good memory, which they still do not. But I imagine in under a year they will.
Yeah, well, I like the diagrams and things that's been able to spit out, like you were just showing. Even I don't want to go too far in the React stuff because I need to focus on finding a business, not creating React artifacts. But I do like knowing what it's got out there if I needed to extend something a little bit or visualize something really quickly.
I don't use spreadsheets anymore. I just use, usually not React, just like HTML artifacts back and forth. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just to add on this and geek out a little bit, there's a rumor, I think it's not tomorrow, sometime really soon, ChatGPT will be releasing basically what N8N and Make are doing within their own, so that you can build out the automated workflows there. It'll be, first time you see it integrated in a thoughtful way there. Google's done a little bit with it, but I'm excited to see what that'll.
Awesome. Yeah, if you haven't, if you check out YouTube, the newest Sonnet 4.5 now has this Claude browser toolbar, which appears to actually do computer use properly. That should be very helpful as well.
Just a quick question. And you said you were working with another developer. Do they, I mean, in development context, vibe coding, like, I don't know if you use like Claude Code or Cursor or whatever, do you have a similar like master prompt methodology, or do you adjust that for development?
In the prototyping phase, so I would say the first thing I do is I would create a PRD using my master prompt for whatever that project is, so that it can thoughtfully create that PRD, and then I would take that and just shove it into Claude Code or Cursor or whatever, or AI Studio. I'll typically, so I'm not a coder, but I know enough, I've product managed enough. So I'll typically prototype myself, get it to a sort of working point, and then give it to a developer. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. Make the PRD yourself. Like, that's the most important thing, right? Is get a good PRD, like a good spec.
Yeah.
Prototype and then send to programmer.
Cool.
And a strong programmer who uses Claude Code or uses Cursor even is like 30x someone who doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Anyone has any questions? Feel free to reach out on Slack. And Andy, I'll give you a few different links to send people if they reach out.
Thanks, Ed. See you all.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,